All right, so moving on, this is going to be part 2 of my calling out Gypsy's lies on the We Need to Talk podcast with Paul Brunson. And just a reminder, this podcast full of lies was released today on the anniversary of Gypsy's crime. Yeah, disgusting, I know. Anyways, Gypsy then starts to talk about, she points out the scars on her neck. And she explains that is due to Dee Dee having her salivary glands removed. She had 2 salivary glands removed, and we have hundreds, I believe it's hundreds of salivary glands. Anyways, Gypsy sticks with the same lie, which has been debunked, but she says that Dee Dee would put the Orajel on her gums to make her drool in the doctor's office. So that's when the doctor decided, well, we got to remove some salivary glands. But Gypsy fails to mention in this lie she's spinning that for quite some time she was getting Botox injections, which were controlling the excessive salivation. They did a sleep study on Gypsy. She was asleep, okay, and they noticed saliva pooling in her throat. Now, did Dee Dee make that happen too? No, she didn't. Dee Dee did not make up this hypersalivation. And like I said, Gypsy skipped over the whole part that it was treated quite well with the Botox injections. And then they eventually stopped working. That's when she had 2 salivary glands removed. But like I said, she didn't tell the whole story there because it's her story. Then she says there had been several times. I don't remember her ever saying this either. She says that there had been several times she had confronted Dee Dee and told Dee Dee, Mama, I'm not as sick as you say I am. But I remember that Gypsy saying when she went to prison, that's when she realized that she wasn't as sick as she thought she was. So which one is it? You knew and you told, she knew and she told Dee Dee several times she wasn't as sick, or she didn't know until she went to prison and realized that, a lie. I don't remember her ever saying in these years that she told her mother that she was sick, not as sick as she thought. And she said Dee Dee would become angry when Gypsy would say this, and that's when she would tell her, you need to appreciate me, and trying to guilt Gypsy, basically, according to Gypsy. She also claims that Dee Dee was jealous of her friends, and that when she would have a friend, it wouldn't last very long because Dee Dee would become jealous of the friend. I don't even remember Gypsy ever talking about having any friends, except for maybe Aaliyah Woodmansey. Besides that, I don't remember Gypsy ever saying that she had friends. So what is she talking about? Dee Dee was jealous of her friends. What friends? And then she's talking about when she was young, they had these, she has so many cousins, and they had cousins by the dozens nights, and I never heard any of this before. But according to Gypsy, Dee Dee was jealous of her friends, so that's why Gypsy never really had friends. Then we get to talking about the BB Pew Pew. Now this story, Gypsy has told it both ways. She has said in the past that she knew it was a BB Pew Pew, and she said at other times that she didn't know, that she actually thought it was a real one when she picked it up and fired it at her mother. Now she claims that 2 BBs hit her mother, one in the clavicle, and I think she said one in the leg, maybe. And they were just superficial wounds, and they were covered by Band-Aids. But I recall, after Gypsy did this with the BB Pew Pew, I remember seeing a hospital record from Dee Dee going to the hospital to receive medical attention, because she was struck numerous times, not just twice. And then that's when the whole Facebook post came out when Dee Dee covered for Gypsy, saying, that she was shot at Walmart. And she was warning people about some stranger at Walmart coming up to them. But the story Gypsy tells us now is just 2 of them hit her, and they were superficial, covered by Band-Aids. And she knew that it was, she tells us this time that she knew it was BB's. Now we're up to the part where Nick comes for the first visit when Gypsy and Dee Dee are going to the Cinderella movie. Remember this? Okay, well, this is when she meets Nick in person for the first time. So she claims, Nick comes up to her and he was by himself, and Gypsy said she didn't think that out too good because she figures, it probably did look strange when Dee Dee looked at this. So Dee Dee gets up to move away from Nicholas when he sits down, and Gypsy says she did not go sit by her mother, she stayed sitting by Nicholas. So as the story goes, we were told that then they decided to dip off into the bathroom because they had talked previously, they had talked about they were going to consummate their relationship in the bathroom at the movie theater. So Gypsy says she dipped off and went to the men's room, and then Nick went to the men's room, and she says, it didn't happen because it just didn't work out, okay? Now this is the part of the story that I don't ever recall hearing before. Gypsy claims that Dee Dee pulled her to the side. Now I might have this wrong, I'd have to rewatch it, but what it boils down to is Dee Dee said to Gypsy, according to Gypsy, you were gone too long in this bathroom. You were gone too long, and she slaps Gypsy across the face. We have never heard this story before, that Dee Dee slapped Gypsy across the face telling her she was gone too long. No. And then now, in the past, Gypsy has said she had decided to carry out the plan to get rid of her mother when she was going to have the exploratory throat surgery for her voice box. But no, now the story changes, and Gypsy says it was after this slap in the face at the movie theater, that's when she decided, and that's when she made up her mind to go through with this plan of getting rid of Dee Dee. See how the story changes? So this is when she made up her mind, because she realized she was never going to be allowed to be with anybody, and she was never going to have any kind of life. She also claims that Nicholas was the one who brought the BDSM into the relationship. We know that to be false also, because if you remember Dan Glidewell, he has made statements that Gypsy brought the BDSM into the relationship with him. So Gypsy says, this was all Nick. All Nick. So Nick brought all of that into the relationship. A lie. She also claims that she doesn't believe Nick ever loved her. How could she possibly believe that Nicholas never loved her? This man took the life of her mother for her. Nicholas never would have done this if had it not been for Gypsy. He did this because he loved her, and he felt as if he was saving her from some monster. But now she claims he never loved her. Anything to make him look bad and make her mother look bad. Now we are up to the night of the actual crime. She claims, they painted each other's nails that night, watched a movie. Finally, Dee Dee had fallen to sleep. Gypsy fell asleep, but then woke up maybe 5 minutes after Dee Dee went to sleep. She texted Nicholas, told him the gloves were outside. And she claims the first thing that Nicholas said at the door is, "This bitch is dead." I don't recall that ever being said before. And, yeah. So you know what? I think we're going to have to go into a part 3. Part 3, we're going to talk about, it's going to take place when Nick is actually committing the crime. So, come back for part 3.